Hello, everybody. Just so I make sure that I do what the slide that Arthur had up on tonight before I show you any of the features of Shaping Tomorrow, I'm going to show you a quick way to find out what the future is just from the front page. So if we press something like Social Changes, here we can see social changes that we have picked various topics that we think are important to our members. And you'll see here that there are pages here that show things like the future of baby boomers, childhood, cities, etc. I can go here and I can press the button, and 2 clicks I can see what the web is saying about the future of consumer. And it's doing that by extracting material from the web. And the robot is reading the web every day, and then we're using a text analyzer to tell us what the web is saying about the future of consumer. So what you've just seen is a process which has eliminated any market research as far as futures research is concerned. On Shaping Tomorrow, you don't have to do any research. The machine is doing the research for you. Let me show you how that works. Every day, the machine will visit over 5,000 sources. Those sources have been chosen by our clients and ourselves. They're all futures-related resources. They consist of organizations that are making the future or are being affected by the future. They consist of people that are writing about the future. I see Dan Abelo is on here, and so Dan's work is picked up by the machine and automatically read and put onto our site so that it becomes part of a knowledge base about the future. And then the machine has also been set to read keywords that our clients and ourselves think are interesting. Now, those 5,000 sources were gleaned first of all by asking the 3,000 futurists that are on our site where they go read and find scan material into the future. And then of course our clients have joined, and they've brought us much more information about things that they're interested in every day and where they go to look for the process. So we have a large list, a growing list of sources where we can go and look. We don't look at the whole web. If we did that, we'd never finish. We look at scanning scanners, finding out who is actually talking about the future and what they think about the future, and then aggregating it. So at midnight, GMT, the machine will trawl those 5,000 sources. It will first of all look to see if there's anything new in the 5,000 sources about the future. As soon as it does that, it will add the material to the Shaping Tomorrow. It'll add the title, the description, the country. It'll read the implications out of the article or the report, etc. And it will place it on Shaping Tomorrow. And then it will do something remarkable. It will actually read the report. I had nothing to do with this, so I can say it's remarkable and amazing. But one of the team came to us and said, I think I can write a program to read articles and reports. And to give you an example of that, it will read a report like Global Risk 2015. It'll read it in 10 seconds. It's 60 pages long, 20,000 words, and it will extract in those 10 seconds probably about 20 or 30 major risks to the world without a human ever reading the report. And it does that every day religiously, following an algorithm we've written to it and trained it to think about. So it does that for about 2,000 insights every day and 1,000 forecasts every day. And by 6 o'clock in the morning, when our South African researcher gets up and goes to work, she'll have a look at what's come in, she'll edit those, and she'll put them on the site. And what you just saw when I showed you social changes in consumer is what has come out of that machine in terms of what it saw in the last few days about the future consumer. So for us, when the machine finds a forecast, it's a short verbatim quote taken directly out of the article. So where it says consumer traffic grew 5% last year, it's forecast to quadruple by 2034, and construction traffic grew 10% last year, it's forecast to grow 2.5% this year. That's been taken directly from a report, And if we wanted to find out where that came from, we can go to this item, and it's about railway technology, and it's read this railway technology report and avoided us having to read all of this to find that forecast. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for listening. So we're going to do the future of cities. Same process. You get one click, you can get the future of cities. The machine's actually doing this once a week. So once a week, it's looking at the summary of the future of cities. And this one would have been updated, I think, on Sunday. So it was updated on the 24th of January. It's due to be updated again on Sunday, as I said. And it will use all the latest ones from this week. I want to get the full forecast about what the future of cities is. So I can go here, press the button. And now it's telling me it's found 4,762 items about the future of cities. If I really wanted to get today's summary and know what it was absolutely as of this morning, I can see them here. I'll just give it a few minutes to run. And then I'll get not the one that was 5 days ago, but the one that's just now. It'll also produce a cloud for me, so it'll produce a word cloud that will show me summary items in terms of the words that are associated with cities. If I click that, I can see what cities are associated to, and therefore I can go back onto Shaping Tomorrow and I can look at those words and find more material. I'm going to have to move it over there after. I can find more material about cities, urbanization, etc. That I can go back into Shaping Tomorrow and look for more forecasts. It's also extracting from the articles the drivers. So I can automatically get the drivers for change coming out of this forecast on cities. In another version which we'll be building this year, those will become dynamic, and they'll also allow us to build what's called cross-impact analysis and scenarios, and allow us to do automated scenarios. So for instance, I might want to look up things like, here's the cloud, I might want to look up how emissions are affecting cities. Driverless cars, for instance, are going to reduce emissions, and cities will become less of a car park and more of a free park for people to actually enjoy. I might want to look at how devices are affecting cities and how buildings are affecting cities. Buildings will talk to each other in the future according to all of these articles and reports and manage themselves without us even knowing. So you've seen the cloud. I can do a timeline here. I won't do that because it'll have to run the 4,762. But it will basically give us a graph that will show us whether cities is becoming more important or less important compared to all of the other topics on the site. And that gives us an idea of whether cities are becoming more important or less important in terms of people's views. I can refine this site, refine this forecast by changing its parameters. So I might want, for instance, to put the USA in here and only look at the future of cities in the USA. I might want to put the future of cities from a start year of 2015 to 2020 only. I might want to look at it from a point of view of how does that affect retail. The Prime Minister of Dubai recently asked for the future of robots, and all he wanted was the statistics. We had that already on our site, so we're able to put in robotics, etc., and press the statistics button, and it came back with about 250 forecasts statistically of what was likely to be the future of robots in about 2025, giving us some impression of how big robots will or won't be. The only claim to fame I can make in all of this is that I thought it might be possible to search the process to do probabilities of these things happening. So right now this just shows which ones are likely to be uncertain and which ones are likely to be likely. In a version which we've already agreed in November, we're now working on the process where we'll expand that list, and the object of that process is that we will be able to do automatic scenarios from the system, and hopefully then get to a point where people can actually say, well, in this scenario I would do this, in that scenario I would do that, and help them to create processes where they can create options and see what they could do even in the worst scenario. Regions was asked for by one of our PR companies. They wanted to be able to split these forecasts by region, and Ford Motor Company asked us if we would put organizations on here. So presumably they wanted to do things like look at the future of Chrysler, for instance, or the future of Volvo, etc., etc. So lots of slices and dices of the information. And when we've done that, we can also export this list. Now, this is not a completed process. As I'll explain in a minute, there are various things we can do with the export. While that's loading, I will bring up an analysis we did for the Australian government. Australian government asked us if we would do the future of work. So this is just an example. I've just done one for a retailer in Czechoslovakia. They can do these themselves, by the way, but they tend to ask us to do them as well. I'm doing another one for a major organisation in Europe on the future of shared economies, and you'll see how quickly you can figure out what the future will be by using this. So I'm going to use this one as the example. It's on cities, but it doesn't matter. So when I open it up, here's the spreadsheet. I've got a long list of all those 4,000 items down the side here. I can see the probabilities where the machine knows where it's calculating the probability. It's doing that by reading the articles. So this one says that parked cars could be data platforms. So because it's a could, it's a conditional statement, so it said it's uncertain. The number of smog-induced deaths could, so that's another uncertain. But then it gets to water wasters will be chivvied by warning lights, so that's likely to happen. And we're going to improve upon these two categories in the next version with plausible, possible, preferable futures using a more robust process, which will then allow us to be able to carve these up into different types of forecasts. It will also tell us which is the topic that's mentioned in the article, so we can, in the future, we will be able to do things like which ones are affecting manufacturing, which ones are affecting financial services, and we have plans to do that in a visual sense next time, so that we'll be able to see things like what percentage of change is coming in these regions and sectors. Same thing with start year and end year. We've worked out a plan for how to actually calculate the start years and end years of different topics and the tipping point. And the guy behind this, Walter Kahl in Switzerland, is busy populating some of the blank spaces here, so the machine's doing more reading of the articles and reports. Also, it does the region. It will then tell us what topic is mentioned in the article. So we could look at all the future of cruise ships, for instance, or the future of cities we have been doing, or the future of water. It's giving us the original source. I haven't looked at these, but I think you can see that most of these, if not all of them, are from professional sources, chosen, as I said earlier, by us or our partners or our clients. Here's the insight it came from, and here's the URL. In the beginning, which was about 2 years ago for this process, clients used to go back and still read the URL because they didn't believe the machine could read it. That's disappearing. Hardly anybody goes back to the URLs except us, still unsure. But our existing clients that know us well don't bother to read the articles anymore, unless they've got something which they specifically want to find out, or they were interested in what the title said. And then it will give us the publication and date and the added date, so we can do various splits using the dates. Let me hold that open at the moment and leave it over here and take you to my document card there. So as I said, we were doing one for the future of work for Australia. The way we did that was they asked us to do one on the future of work, talent, and source and outsourcing. So we had the equivalent spreadsheet over here and a blank PowerPoint over here. We began looking at these items. Futurists tend to triangulate items, looking for the same information being said by three different people in three different places at about the same time, saying that something is changing. So we did the same thing. We went down here and looked for those types of items, and then we separated them out into topics. So the first one was, here are the macro drivers that we thought were affecting talent and HR. You'll see one here. I know where this one came from. Gartner said several years ago that 40% of jobs will disappear by 2020, which should frighten us all when we first look at that. But obviously we're moving into an era now when other jobs are going to appear. Many of the jobs that children will take in the future don't exist today or have never been heard of today. And so the debate is going on is how many jobs will appear in the future, as much as how many will disappear, and what is the net effect on employment and unemployment. So obviously, if you're the HR team of Australia, this is something very big for you. You want to think about what will my Australian talent base look like in 5, 10, 15 years. And we do a lot of work for clients around the world, helping them to figure out how their jobs are going to disappear, which ones are going to come in their places, how they can retrain their staff, etc. So Shaping Tomorrow is not just about reporting the future, but about helping organizations to think about how they're going to respond to it. Now, in order to get those macro drivers, at the bottom here in the notes section, you'll see that there are various statements. Those statements were taken directly from the spreadsheet. So we have an evidence base for what we're telling our clients. We're starting out with a report or an article. The machine is reading it, extracting the forecast. We're putting the forecast at the bottom, and then in the main body of the PowerPoint slide, we're interpreting that by shortening it to a PowerPoint presentation, and then we're gathering them together to say these are the macro drivers affecting talent. So it's a pyramid, and it's evidence-based at every level. Here's what we think the future of talent might look like, the future of outsourcing, the future of shared services, etc. And we put that presentation together in slide 3 through slide 11, so about 8 slides to tell them what was happening with HR teams. As soon as we'd done that, their main reason for doing this is they wanted a one-pager that would tell them what the future would look like. So I'll get rid of the spreadsheet now for a minute, make that a bit smaller for you. So we then took those slides and slammed the driver, like macro drivers, into a dark blue tab and put all the trends in italicized words underneath those. So one slide tells all for the Australian HR department. Now they then had a meeting. They went through all of this in one day. But before they went and had that meeting, we gave them what we thought was our recommendations on what they should be doing about the changes in HR. We gave them, I think it's 12 on the list. I saw my friend Ian, who asked me to do this in Singapore about 3 or 4 months ago, and he said we had a great meeting. No one in the room had ever done foresight before. No one knew they could do this types of things. But when they came out at the end of the meeting, 7 out of the 12 items on Shaping Tomorrow's recommendation list and some others that they'd come up with were immediately grabbed on as things that they should be doing to modernize their HR team. Now, the important thing about this process is if you can imagine having to do that for yourselves. Dell told us some months ago that they produce six presentations like this every year for their clients. This is a small part of Dell, and it takes them 40 to 60 hours for each of those to be able to go on the web, search the web for research, put it together in a PowerPoint like this, and make it so they can take it out into the world. Dell quickly recognized when they were looking at this that they could do this in 2 to 3 hours, and indeed that's how long it took us to do this presentation, 2 to 3 hours. So all of our clients are now in a position where somebody comes along and they ask Bill Van Aaron to do something like the future of cities. Bill has the capability of being able to go on Shaping Tomorrow and do exactly what I just said to you. He plugs in cities into the search box at the beginning. The machine will come back and give him the answers in terms of a spreadsheet. Takes the spreadsheet, reorganizes it the way he wants to show it, either in a spreadsheet or another format, and within a few hours he's delivering that to somebody that asked him the question in the first place, all without having to do much work. So that's the beauty of Shaping Tomorrow. So let me come out of there, and I'll keep the spreadsheet up where I can see it. We just lost it now. There it is. Okay. Another way for us to do this is every week we produce a trend alert. We go through, we ask the machine to tell us what are the main keywords that have happened in the week. This week it's probably going to be households, a lot of stuff about the future of homes, and we will then ask it to do the future of homes and follow the same process I just showed you. But as that one's not done yet, I'll show you what we did last week, which I think was on waste, but I'm only guessing. Yes, it was on waste. So there's a future. Last week there was a lot of mentions about where we're going on waste, how we're reducing waste and reusing waste in a circular economy. So we used the spreadsheet again, but this time in a different format, one that our members told us they liked when we first started this process. So the first thing they said was, please tell us from the spreadsheet what is changing. So we went to the spreadsheet, and we did the same thing again, triangulating the process down this list. We split it into what did we find for service provision, so that's almost like the PowerPoint header of a particular slide. And then we took the bullet-pointed evidence from here and put them straight onto here. As you can see, the extractors usually producing them in Twitter-like statements, so there's not many characters, not much to read, and our members like to read it that way. They like to be able to say, well, I'm only interested in service provision. I'm not interested in the collaborative economy. I am interested in resources. So the headers allow them to quickly decide what they want to read, and then once they decide they want to read service provision, there are a number of bullets about what's going on in waste in service provision, collaborative economy, resource use, etc. And then they want us to use the same spreadsheet to tell them what the implications are, because up until now we've not found a way of being able to split implications from what is changing in this list. We have some ideas, but it's more complex than you might imagine for the machine to be able to understand what's changing and then separate that from the implications. We are working on that, because then we wouldn't have to do any work on making this chart at all. It would come out automatically. So then it's giving us the implications on change management, what the risks are, what the benefits are, etc. It's giving us the drivers, as you saw earlier. It's helping. We put this in every week. So this is banged in by us in terms of, well, learn more. Where can I find more information? How can I do the sort of thing the Australian government did? And then we top it with, why should I read this? Our webmaster adds a picture, and we send it out. We send it out to 12,000 members each week. The time that used to take to do that in the old days was over 8 hours. Now we can do the whole thing in 1 hour, apart from putting the picture on and pressing the button. So very, very fast ways to use this material and do what's required. I'll close all that down now. Well, then something serendipitous happened. One of us read that we should be helping the world by giving the world some of the things that from forecasts would help the world to improve and heal. And we started out by having a single button on the front page here, where we put global challenges. This button used to say global challenges, and behind it were things like crime, conflict, etc. And then several things happened. One was our client said to us, it's very nice having global challenges, but guys, we can't fix global things. So we're using it less than we should. So we changed that to social changes. And when we did that, we put up things like baby boomers, Gen X, cities, etc. And we had an immediate massive increase in the amount of use of that button. Our clients then said, that's really interesting for us, but we would like to be able to do this ourselves, and we'd like to have our own instant summaries of what's going on things that we find interesting. So we explored that with the Science and Technology Facilities Council, who came up with this. I like me showing you this because I'm not going to show you their work, just what they did, what we did for them, and how we do it for all of our customers. If I go into their site and look at their forecasts, you'll see that every client has exactly the same front page. Every client has exactly the same layout of their database. Here's the list of the things you can see on the front page, like social changes, sector prospects, but there is an extra button in here called Our Challenges, so that never changed in terms of the word challenges. And these are the challenges that the Science and Technology Facilities Council is looking at. So they're looking at things like antimicrobial resistance, bioenergy, brain technologies, etc. And every week the machine will tell them what the latest stuff it's found on those. So they will have added their sources, as I explained at the beginning. They've added their sources about the future. The machine every day will be looking for what can I find on antimicrobial resistance, bioenergy and brain technologies. It will add that to the system without them doing anything. And then at the end of the week, when these run, my counterpart there and his team can go immediately to antimicrobial resistance, and they can find what is the latest research, with the machine having done all the work other than the editor, making sure that things have worked correctly within the process. And we only have one editor, by the way. She's handling about 50 big clients, which, if you think about how much work it would take every client to go and find this material each week, lay it out in a good format, the savings in time and effort are huge, and mean that our clients can spend time thinking about what does that mean, rather than finding the material or not even finding it at all. So we did that for Science and Technology, and we do that for all of our clients now. Well, then somebody said, well, not just social changes, Mike, or global challenges, let's have social challenges, and let's have sector prospects as well. So here you can go, and I'll show you tomorrow, and you can see the sectors that we have previously defined. Let's move that there. So again, you can do the same thing. They're all pre-set up. So what started out as the idea of being philanthropic and helping people with global challenges has expanded into various sectors. You can also here see the future in terms of opportunities and risks. I particularly like this one because it's telling me what sort of organizations and what sort of products and services are likely to disappear and which ones are likely to emerge. So if I were doing stuff on the future of jobs, I could look at the declining industries, the declining services and products, and make some judgment about which types of people are going to be affected by the changes that Gartner came up with. I can look here to see which new jobs might come in place of those jobs, and I can see which ones are already growing, which are likely to absorb the redundancies being made by technology. For investors, this area is giving us a whole area of what's the latest places to invest in. I can see all my opportunities, and of course there are many risk managers out there, so this is doing the risk analysis for them in terms of letting them know what risks are arriving without them having to go through the web. We've got our own separate section on here in terms of tracking all the terrorist organizations in the world, not just ISIS, but all sorts of weird and wonderful terrorist groups that you've probably never heard of, but the machine knows about. We can then see threats. Threats are different from risks in our view. Risks we know something about, we know we're taking a risk. Threats, we don't necessarily know that these things are going to happen. They're in the back of our mind, but threats are more unlikely to happen and are probably more in the future, but are things that will strike us and we'll all say, well, we were surprised by that, even though we knew about them. And then the last one, which is my favorite, is here's a whole group of materials about where people's vision is going. Where are we taking the world? Where are people acting positively to change things? And where can we get on the same bandwagon? We also do year by year. So now we could choose a year and we could look at what's happening. We ran one just after Christmas on what's the future in 2016. But we could equally have gone out and said what's the future in 2030 or 2050. And if we haven't got the right search process here, and you wanted to do 2045, for instance, you can go down here to the search box and put in your own search. Get that up. Let's make that move. So we could go here and we could search for our own item 2045. This is Boolean, so we could put 2045 and let's say cars, and it would come back with that would come back with everything it had found on 2045 on cars. Now I don't want a Java update, thank you. Then the last one is more geographic. This is the G20 watch. So I can look at the future of Argentina or Australia or Brazil, and at the bottom the future of the UK or the USA. It's a pity you can't have a G21 because then we wouldn't have the spare space. Perhaps we will do soon. And if I didn't find the country on there, I could put Pakistan in, and I could see the future of Pakistan very quickly. So that's what our AI does. I'm not going to go into too much detail on the next piece, but to just very briefly say that Shaping Tomorrow has a very large group of tools. Our clients use these tools to do strategic foresight exercises. We just did one on the future of batteries for Department for Transport. They used our planning tools to start by asking a good question. The machine said, I know what your question is, and I can help you by telling you what the future of batteries is. They had 20 battery experts in the room, and we were able to start from a zero position in terms of anybody knowing about foresight, and a very disparate group of people in terms of their understanding of batteries and where it was taking us. But within 2 days, using our strategic planning tools and the robot's ability to help them, and from other tools we're using on the site, on the second day we were able to come out with a view of what the future of batteries was, a common view, and to be able to build scenarios in those 2 days, we built options in those 2 days, and we gave the UK government a plan for what they should be doing about batteries, and how they should be executing that in terms of a roadmap, all in the space of 2 days. So those of you that know anything about foresight will know that many consultants take weeks, months, and in one case we found somebody that had taken 3 years to do the same thing that we can do in 2 days. The machine will help you analyze what's happening, help you imagine the future, and help you to predict the future and prioritize it. And our clients find that really helpful because, as you all know, it's difficult to get a group of people in a room these days for any length of time. And if you have projects that last 3 months, 6 months, or a year, people have generally moved on and the project team keeps changing, and you never finish the project because you're always trying to catch up with the fact that the changes in the personnel happen. So by being able to do strategic foresight in 2 days means that the team stays together, the answers come out all in one go, and because Shaping Tomorrow is continuously looking at the future, you can keep your results and your decisions up to date on an almost instant basis. Machine has a pipeline management process in here, so once you've decided which of those plans and items you've looked at, like batteries, you can decide to move it up and down your innovation pipeline. It has a whole series of tools again to act on the future. So once you've decided that batteries is really important, it's got tools to help you strategize about how you might make that happen, how you might innovate in the batteries market, what you're going to do to change, how you're going to rate your performance so far, and it's got tools to monitor the progress you're making on perhaps introducing batteries in your country. Lastly, there is a network here of members. I see the whole list. If you were to come on Shaping Tomorrow, you'd only see the ones where there's a picture and a bio. Some members don't like looking at blank spaces, so I get the blank space ones. Maritza, I think you're in the meeting. Thank you for joining. So Maritza, you haven't put your bio and your picture in. If you did, you would appear and be available to any Shaping Tomorrow member to talk to. Similarly, you'd be able to talk to them. Could I run your AI on data in my company server? You can run our system on your company server, and yes, you could then run your data into Shaping Tomorrow, Barb, and you'd get your own material. If you wished, it could be private, or if you wished, it can be open. So our clients all have their own sites. I showed you STFC. I'll just go back there for a second. We'll come back here. there's FTSC's members. So there's people that are part of them. There's the 1,700. Because FTSC is a client, and you don't see all the people that I can see. There are 1,700 people who've allowed themselves to be seen on the site, and you can then go through and ask. I do know who Rosalind Liu is. She's not far away from me. She's in Singapore. So if I wanted to ask Rosalind about things going on in the defence process, which we in fact are talking about together, I can ask Rosalind to help me with what does she know about defence, or she can ask me. So if this was your site, Barb, and you were the Science and Technology Facilities Council, you'd be able to have your own site, your own colours, your own logo, your own membership, and you've got an opportunity everywhere on this site to keep your stuff private. Even we can't see it if you wish that to happen, because we've got some very prestigious organisations that are in the intelligence area, or they've got their corporate plans on here that we don't want to see and they don't want to show us. You can keep everything behind closed doors, or you can have everything open, as some of our clients like sharing, because then they get people like Ian Roderick commenting on that process and helping them, because he sees that it's in the same space that he's in, even though he's not in the same organisation. So it's both. In terms of AI, as I said, you can set up your own sources. You can add your own material here. The machine will add PDFs, etc., etc. And so it becomes your future's knowledge base for your company. I hope that answers your question, Bob. And I'll stay in here just to finish, because there's nothing private about this. There are forums here for people to discuss openly or privately. Most of the discussions happen privately within the clients. And then lastly, everybody has access to the Foresight Network materials. So here are a whole load of materials about why should I manage the future? Why should I be interested? Those of you in your companies that don't have Foresight capabilities will find that quite useful, because other companies have known about Foresight for years and practice Foresight every day. HP comes to mind in the past as being one that got it and understood Foresight for many years. It's not necessarily doing as well now, but in the past it was known as a Foresight leader. Others, like Shell, have known about Foresight for 50 years, very much into the scenario building. Became famous for scenario building, and many of the people that work there have become famous for scenario building, and that was because they could see that there was going to be a Middle East crisis, which happened. They built the scenarios to cope with the change in the Middle East, which is similar to what's going on now. Their competitors didn't, and as a result, Shell moved up from the 6th largest oil company to the 2nd largest, because everybody else was frozen in the headlights when the Gulf War started in 1973. You can have a library here which will show you where the latest books and projects are. This will tell you where the meetings are for Foresight. So the area that I like the best is the methods. So if you want to learn about statistics and scenarios and monitoring, find all the best material that we've used to build this site in there, but there's still material that we don't use, maybe we'll do in the future. You can find all the players that we found in the Foresight space, and you can also find material that they've written about the future. So that's really for people who are really interested in Foresight and want to know where the academic literature is. So let me come out of STSC before I say anything too much about their company. And I'll go back to ST Main. And that, Arthur, is really everything we do. So our intent is to try to help organizations to make better decisions today, and we do that by helping them understand what the future holds, using our artificial intelligence to reduce the time it takes to do that, and we provide them tools to plan and act ahead of rivals.
Mike, can you talk a little bit?
Thank you for listening.
Mike, can you talk a little bit more about how members can work with you, the various ways they can work with you and access the information and the tools on your site?
Yeah, there are 3 levels. You can go on our site, first of all, and you can use it for free. You can move around the site. You can see everything I just showed you for free. If you decide that you want to have more content than the first page, it's going to ask you to pay. If you decide you want to use the tools, it's going to ask you to pay. And it's on a pay-as-you-go basis, and it's quite cheap. You can get quite a lot for a few dollars, but it's only going to allow you to do one-off exercises. That's primarily there for consultants, small organizations that just want to do one-off exercises. So free, pay-as-you-go. What generally happens is that clients, especially those who want to get their foresight messages through the organization, where they've got large foresight teams, will subscribe to the site. They'll subscribe to a number of licenses. Those licenses will then allow them to do what you saw with Science and Technology Facilities Council. That will give them their own logo, their own colors. It will give them the ability to have more than one license. So they can have X number of licenses, and those licenses allow them to see all the content without having to keep paying, allow them to see all the tools, allow them to have networking processes and managing workshops remotely or live, allows them to get training from us in how to use the site, etc. So we're interested in helping everybody, but the client sites are the ones that help us to pay for the site and to move it forward, and the pay-as-you-go ones are almost a teaser for those people that want to practice with the process before they show their boss. Richard, you've written a question, I would like chat. What does that mean?
It means I want to ask my question verbally.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, I have a front-end innovation company, and I have two potential needs for your services. One is that in our creative sessions, we bring in significant amounts of stimulus, and the stimulus is in all forms and types, but one of them forms of stimulus is peeks into the future, what's happening, what's trending, all that sort of stuff, which is exactly what I hear you talking about. But that becomes a sort of, if you will, a one-off need for that particular client at that particular time. It would serve to introduce them to the capabilities, but it is meant for that one particular session. Yep. I'm guessing that your system will accommodate those sort of one-offs. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. The second question.
That's very similar to what I described about the Department for Transport and Batteries.
Right.
So the DFT is not our client, but they wanted to do a batteries workshop, and they had the 20 battery experts from all over the battery industry, from academia, from commercial, except none of them had ever met each other before. They were assembled by the Science and Technology Facilities Council, and we got the job of facilitating that process using our tools to get 25 different people in the room to agree what the future of batteries was. So it's a bit like herding cats.
Yeah.
But at the end, they were all faced in the same direction. That's one end of our scale. The other end is that the client takes the service and they use it to run their foresight process every day throughout their company.
Right. The second question I've got for you is, in our process also, one of the most time-consuming things, we bring into a creative session not only the top experts, relevant experts from the client, but we also do a worldwide search for top external experts who have relevant expertise that doesn't duplicate what the client has. So finding, and I'll give you an example. We had a major international client in the frozen food business, and I needed to find the top 3 to 5 experts in doing frozen food research in this particular case. And and since I led that search, I can tell you they don't just jump out of a Google search. So I'm wondering if I needed to be able to search for the top experts, recognized experts by their peers and everything, is that something that your service could help me with?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because we're putting together a proposal which has asked for that very thing. And I don't know if you can read this, if this is going to make it bigger somehow. But here's, just to give you some evidence that we can. Here's one from Russia. Andrew Zorin in Z-Consult Russia said, Shaping Tomorrow surpassed our expectations and we were delighted with the result. We received a list of 30 international water experts selected from their global foresight network in just 2 days after requesting this search. Now, the way we did that was I do have an enormous address book. I do know 70,000 people. God knows how I managed to know 70,000 people, but I know them personally, just because of the way my life has gone. Plus, there are around 3,000 people in our Foresight network. Then there are 22,000 people in our Shaping Tomorrow network. Then we know other people in other networks who are also into the future. So what we did for Andre when he asked us this question was we mailed those networks, and we mailed them and asked them to give us the names of people who were in the water expert process. And then we did two things. The first thing was we looked at the list that we got back, the recommendations we got back, and of course we said to people like yourself, Richard, you know, who else do you know, and who do you recommend? So we got back a lot of recommendations in 2 days. We then used that to sift the chaff from the wheat, because we counted the number of people who mentioned Richard Hasno as an expert, and if he only got 1 vote compared to somebody that got 10, then we would go for the person with 10. So we used the wisdom of crowds to say this is a good guy, this is not so good guy. This is the expert. This is just somebody who's dabbling in the area.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, that's.
Then we wrote to those experts, and we asked them if they would be willing to go on this list, still within the 2 days, and we asked them to send them back their resumes, and we have a model inside Shaping Tomorrow, which we are going to use for that bid I just showed you, which allows us to score each of the experts on a series of criteria. And from that, we were able to tell Andre that these were the best 30 on water. So we're using our networks to do that.
So the answer is yes.
The answer is yes, but I need to caveat that slightly by saying if you give us one of those tiny spaces where there's hardly any experts, the likelihood is we're not going to find anybody. Yeah. But if it's an area like water or agriculture or electronics, etc., yes, we will be able to find people.
Okay, good. I appreciate your help. That's very helpful, and looks like you can help me with some of my needs.
Thank you. Okay, good. Any other questions from anybody?
There's a question from Barb. How would you use SMBs use this?
What's SMB?
Small businesses, I would take it.
I use those. Is that right, Bob? Because I would call those SMEs. Well, we're the smallest.
Bob, you can turn on your microphone if you want to comment. Oh, she just wrote yes.
She's left?
No, Richard Hasnot's left.
Okay. Relations. SMEs we would call them, Bob, so that's probably just a language difference between you and I. We're the smallest SME using this. We've only got 5 people. But we use this process to every day we're reading stuff about the future, and when we see something new that we never saw before that we can use on Shaping Tomorrow, either by improving our website or looking at the way we do the sort of things that Richard Hasno just said, we use the future almost on a daily basis. And once a week our team sits down and does what many of our clients do. We sit down and say, what came in this week? What did we see that were new patterns, new ideas, etc.? And often as not, our team will change the website as we're sitting there talking. If it's very easy to do, we'll do it instantly. If it's something which requires us to do a bit of planning, we'll think through the plan and put it into maybe the next release or the one after. And some of the more esoteric really will require a lot of work. We'll do some background work and we might release that in a year. So we use Shaping Tomorrow as a tool to actually improve Shaping Tomorrow. By doing that sort of thing. Other clients who are small, we do have clients that have sort of like 20, 30, 50 people, and they do exactly the same thing. Philips taught us this technique years ago. They had a design team who were interested in the future of the house. I've actually been in Philips' Future of the House, quite remarkable house. and they're thinking 15 to 20 years ahead. So what they do is every week they will ask their team to come to a meeting for 30 minutes and to come with one or two ideas about what they could do to solve, what they could do to improve the future of the home. So they would necessarily, I won't necessarily pick one that's correct, but they might be looking at, one of them might be looking at the future of baby boomers, and they're assigned to look at baby boomers each week, and each week they'll come to the meeting and say, I saw this on baby boomers that would affect the future of the home. Each one gets 2 minutes. There's usually 10 people in the room in Philips to do that. They get 2 minutes each to talk about one or two ideas they saw in the week. After the 20 minutes has gone by, they have 5 minutes to talk about what were the things that they all saw. What did they see that were common amongst them? And they'll then come down to a list of one or two, and then in the last 5 minutes they'll think about, okay, so we've got these one or two, what should we do about them now? How do we communicate them to the designers, etc., etc. So these 30-minute meetings help organizations, whether they're small, medium, or large, to think about the future and have it on their agenda each week, and then to come down to the one or two things they really, really want to concentrate on. And that gets the whole organization future-focused and not past-focused. Bill, please feel free. I hope that helped you.
Sure. Hi, Mike, Arthur, everybody. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I can.
Okay. Yeah, I deal a lot with integrated thinking and technology groups and all of that. And if I were to sit down and look at an R&D team and look at marketing and look at a bunch of different functions within a company, and we want to, let's say we want to look at the future of R&D, and maybe we want to look at a market. And what I'm wondering, and maybe this is something you're very capable of, but maybe haven't figured out yet. But I look at what are the correlations, the direct and indirect factors. What are the things that we could aggregate that say this is something, if you're looking at this market, if you're looking at this R&D future, if you're looking at how that applies to products that will be in retail, what are the things that you should have on your important list? And I'm just sensing as I listen to you that you could have that capability already, but I wanted to just dive into it a little bit. Does that make sense?
Yes, we do, Bill, in terms of the fact that when you get the spreadsheet up, the spreadsheet will have things on there which are both converging and diverging, and it will also have ideas on there that you probably didn't see were connected. And if we were to do something like the battery process, but combine it with the Philips way of thinking about patterns, that really in our world right now is being done by humans looking at the robot's results. It's not being done by the robot yet, and I put the word robot yet on the end there because it's possible that the robot can do some of that, but it's not been something that clients have asked for.
So one of the things as a subset of that I look at are what I call ecosystem mapping, where it's really a relationship basis. So anything you do, there's an ecosystem out there that supports it, that's vital. I see a lot of trends, and I know that there's some ability to dive back down into the articles. It was an amazing website that you put together that allows you to dive into it. But I still, when I look at a relationship ecosystem, that could be things like what are the resistance factors, what are the motivations, what are the things that have to be managed or understood before something can really happen. Because as we advise clients, we want to make sure we're a brand that listens, we're a brand that can communicate effectively within that sphere. How does that trigger an involvement by what you guys can do?
Okay. Well, first of all, I would be using my spreadsheets to answer some of those questions, and secondarily, the system has within it the types of questions that you are using. So if I went to let me see if I can put my number in. If I went to Browse Insights and I wanted to, let's see if we can find something in plan. I might want to imagine the future at this stage. I'll pick Imagine. So I could use any one of these tools to imagine how I might redefine the market. I'm not picking on the ones you used there because I'll need a few seconds to think about that. But here's, we could use the spreadsheet, for instance, to look at this template, and we could say, based on what we see in the spreadsheet, are there items in there that we could respond to unserved customer needs? How could we respond to customers in a different emotional state? How could we do it from an analytical viewpoint? Big data would come out of there, for instance. How could we respond to it by giving somebody better? So our templates would answer those questions for you. So it'd be a combination of the spreadsheet giving you the ideas and the template causing you to do a systematic analysis, picking the template that's most appropriate. And I know that there's a template in there in the system close to what you said. I don't think we've got one quite the same, but very similar. So
okay, I love it. That'll be something I want to explore a little bit more with you at another time. But thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you. Nice pleasure. And thank you all for listening.